Hello and welcome back everyone to the Dota 2 Champions League Season 5 LAN Finals here in Berlin. We're now joined here on the desk by Kai, Honey once more to do some pre-game discussions, as well as Cap, who's joining us again. Durka's still here, of which I'm very happy. Thanks very much for not completely leaving me here. So this is the second winner bracket semifinal we're going to see today. Is going to be between the unarguable favorite of the tournament, VG Gaming. Again, they came through the Chinese qualifier without dropping a single game, which is quite impressive by itself. But apart from that, they've also just been incredible dominant throughout the whole last patch, and the beginning of this patch looked equally as good. Do you guys think NiP can get a game off them?
I mean, that's the question, right? It's not a question of can NiP win this series. The question is, can NiP take a game off of VG Gaming? And then we go from there, right? It's going to be tough. VG Gaming are by far the strongest team here, and Ninjas and Pajamas, I mean, when we did our pre-ranking, right, it was NiP at third. Yeah. And that's basically only because like they've had really bad performance versus Empire lately. So it's just when you put the third place position going up against the undisputed first place position, it's hard to say if they're going to be able to take a single game off of them, especially since I personally felt like the patch didn't really benefit them that much.
No, definitely. I think going into the matchup, I would probably assume that obviously VG is going to have the upper hand for sure. Right. At the same time, I think the way NiP has to approach the game to me is that they need to surprise VG. They have to find something like an opening to them, maybe that develop. Like, it's not that developed yet in this patch, but has a good opening in the patch. So find something that, you know, there has been quite a lot of matches for VG in terms of what has been played. Like, VG kind of showed a lot of material of possible play scenarios for this patch. What can NiP take from that, and how can they kind of counter their strat? Obviously, it's going to be immensely hard.
Yeah, there's obviously a lot of info out there. VG last 10 series are 10-0, thanks to our statsmen, not Nathouse today, Scant and Knoxville. They've provided us with some nice stat sheets, so big shout out to those guys. I know they're watching now, they're paying attention, tweeting at us a couple of other stats as well. You know, the last series we saw, Empire, they did actually continue their run with 10-0 on that Tuskar, but do you think Tusk is something that maybe VG try again? They've had Isos play it once before.
Potentially. I mean, I'm not the biggest favorite of the hero just because I feel like the hero does not offer too much 5-on-5 damage output. Definitely, he's an underrated hero to me, sure. He's one of those, if you have a player that scales really good with the hero, that is very comfortable with playing the hero, like Ice, probably, I think you can't really determine one hero for Ice, but he's generally good on almost pretty much everything he plays.
Simple as that.
It's hard to determine, but I guess it's like a VG thing that you just have to look out for, especially with the patch and the upgrades that he got, on how comfortable they are with running the hero, or if it is like, you know, more of those once in a while we just feel like running Tusk.
Yeah. I mean, whether it's one of the heroes that I actually think is going to be pretty prevalent going forward because we're seeing such a teamfight-oriented meta. I mean, we are already seeing Tidehunters being picked up a lot in the Chinese scene. Specifically, the Western scene didn't actually favor Tidehunter at all. I don't know your feelings about it, Hani, but the Chinese definitely still valued the Tidehunter quite a bit, and it seems like he's only going to grow his value as he got very slight buffs. Of course, that Kraken Shell, an extra 2 damage block per level. Pretty minor, makes a small difference in the lane, but not much. But I think more generally speaking that because we're going to be seeing a lot more team fights, Tidehunter is even more valuable than he was before.
Do you guys actually feel that VG has an Achilles heel? Like, I mean, obviously NiP has to kind of hope for mistakes from VG's side to kind of be able to, you know, like, to go on top of things after that. But like, what is it VG does do wrong? Do they do anything wrong?
I think they can get a little bit overzealous with how, but then Super can catch up. You know, they've got multiple players that can fit into that carry role. Then they've also got, you know, FY. He's been playing the 4 role, but he's been so farm heavy on these heroes, especially in the previous patch with heroes like Lina and Nature's Prophet. He's basically playing as a 4th core. So I don't think they can look to shut down, you know, one of the core heroes. They've really got to try and just get map control by whatever means they can and try and limit how far ahead VG can get early on in the game.
I think one thing that you just mentioned that shines to me the most is the FY position, the 4th position that usually he brings so much game impact in terms of ganking and rotating, where I feel like a lot of teams have to step that up. They need to be a bit more active in terms of how they move around the map, and especially being being the team that initiates these kind of fights, right? Where against Vici is definitely extremely hard to perform that. Where I feel like you go against Vici, you're gonna end up being just pressured so much where you never get to go for the move ahead. Like you're the person that pressures, you're the person that initiates onto a push or goes for a gank and then results something out of that. So I think that's one of the main things where teams have to develop exactly that, where the fourth position is going to be the moving factor, where FI always seems to shine in all games that he plays.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, that duo, whether it's I think that one of the strongest things about Vici Gaming is so much of their early to mid game, which comes down to Super's performance in the middle lane, where he's not one of those players that really shines that often when you compare it to the rest of the Vici Gaming team, but I think he's just always solid, right? He never has a game where he misses. And so when he's always hitting like that, he's always putting out like consistent performances in that mid lane, and then you have the support duo that has managed to create like so much havoc in the early game. You pretty much set yourself up where both Hao and Ice are going to be able to find farm, even if their lanes go poorly in some way. Like the mid performing well enough and the supports performing well enough and making space allows that both the offlaner as well as their carry to be able to develop a lot more farm than many other teams would be able to. I mean, as Dirk was saying, right, they always find something, and that's why you need to be able to try and limit the map control as much as possible. Problem is, usually Super performs well enough in middle lane that he either wins it or draws even, so there's no advantage there. And then the supports usually outdo any. I mean, this is by far the best support duo, in my opinion, in Dota. I mean, they provide so much space. They provide so many different opportunities for their cores that I don't think any other support duo out there matches.
Yeah, they just know. They just know what's going on. They can read the game so incredibly well. And quite often, when you see, you're progressing through the draft and you see, okay, these supports, they're quite static. Let's say Lich and Abaddon on one side, then Shadow Demon Leshrac on the other. You know that one grouping is going to go around roaming looking for kills. The other's going to be sitting on the lane trying to be as defensive as possible. But FY and Fenrir, they don't just go out smoking, looking for kills. They know exactly when they need to move into a lane, know when they need to be stacking, and they just read the game so well.
I think to go back to what Zoe specifically asked, which was, does Vici Gaming have an Achilles heel? I won't say that they have an Achilles heel, but I would say that Ninjas in Pajamas, their best shot, and I think just their play style, I mean, this is what they're strongest at. They're strongest at like kind of 4 protect 1, very passive, conservative plays that focuses on playing defense, and I think that's probably the ideal way to play against Vici Gaming. So it's not only their strength, but I would say it's the best way to play against the very active style of Vici Gaming, who like to be able to move around their supports and provide space, but also go for those early team fight and pushes. I mean, you expect them to be looking at DK as one of the top pickups. Any sort of big team fighters, I personally would say Tidehunter is a perfect example for a pickup for them in the off lane, but just those kind of pickups, I would say playing conservatively against is best. But that's my personal take on Ninjas in Pajamas. If it was Empire, I would say Empire just has to go full yellow aggression at that point.
Do you guys feel that a team like NiP, they should rather stick to coming into this game, having an idea and trying to stick to what they're comfortable with and what they want to play, and not so much actually reacting to what VG is drafting? Do you feel like that's the better way to go?
I think for NiP right now at this point is with the current patch or with the new patches that they haven't found themselves yet. They kind of need more time, especially them. Like usually you would see NiP, they have a very stable kind of like draft. Is always the same pattern. How they draft, if they find an opening, they go with that pattern throughout the entire draft. But right now I feel like they haven't really found what's best for them in this current patch on how they should develop throughout the game. So I'm not entirely sure what the response is, but I hope they can kind of figure out with this tournament, especially on where they stand, and maybe figure out a style for them that works really well.
I mean, the last tournament we've seen from NiP was the Aces tournament. Just I think it's exactly a week ago now. They haven't had the best of times there. It didn't quite work out for them.
Yeah.
Do you think they're gonna have changed a lot looking back, like within that week, or do you think they're gonna try to go for kind of a similar thing they tried there?
I think it really depends on how much practice they manage to get in that time in between. You can only ask them. You can only ask that to the players, and not just how much practice time they got, but if they found something like kind of like a clue. You usually like you go with drafts, and it can go your way, but it can also be the opposite. Like if this week was very productive for them, it could be great, and they could have a great time during this tournament as well. But if the last week was rather unproductive, like where they go into this kind of practice phase to figure out the patch, and they haven't really found an answer yet, it could be the complete opposite, where it's just like, all right, we haven't found a style. Let's just hope for something.
Yeah, I think one of the biggest things for this new patch, and I mean, it's hard to pull out in just a week, but I would say one of the biggest things for NiP specifically in this new patch is to find a different, more options, I would say. I don't want to say different playstyle because he does it so well, but I would say more options for Limp in that middle lane. He's been a solid mid laner for them that has consistently performed on Queen of Pains and Lena's, those kind of heroes that move around the map and are kind of those playmaking and tempo controlling heroes. But I would say that it's kind of obvious to read. And I would say that NiP need to be able to find more options, right? They can't just run Lena every single game for him. That being said, I think that one of the best things that for NiP in this current patch is actually the Leshrac. The Leshrac being such a popular core, I think that would actually really benefit Ninjas and Pajamas. While I feel like as a whole the patch is kind of shaky for them specifically, I would say that one instance that's a one light for me is I feel Leshrac is a core that suits their playstyle and suits Limp specifically very well.
What do you guys think? Because last week when we talked to Era, he was actually really positive and really excited by the patch. He said like, well, they buffed Era heroes, right? Like I'm gonna play that Ursa and it's gonna be awesome. So, but we didn't see Ursa from them last week. Is there any heroes you think they could pull out of their sleeves this time around?
I mean, one of the standard heroes of Era would be Slark. That's one of those cores that kind of got an upgrade in terms of items to how the hero functions. Other than that, I think he's really good in comparison to other carries, he's very good on intelligence carries, such as Pugna or, like you mentioned, Leshrac, where that carry role could fit him as well. Given the fact that Dragon Knight got a lot stronger again, the old DK plus Pugna strat could come back into the play. I haven't seen that strat particular out of any team, but I've seen these heroes being played. So combining those two, I would not be surprised at happening.
And I think a classic era hero, another one is Tiny. And I think that Tiny still fits very well in this current meta because we're going to be seeing so much team fight that the natural response to team fight aggressive lineups are you have two choices, right? You either try and fight them as much as possible and make sure you don't allow them to take those towers, or you go for split push. And I think that's obviously what Tiny Wisp does very well. If they can manage to pull that out, I would say that's NiP's best shot at being able to take a game.
We did see NiP working the Tiny Wisp lately, and it worked out really well for them. So do you guys feel like that's something VG might just ban out for them?
They'll ban the Wisp for sure. I'm pretty certain of that. VG, like, guessing bans, probably Wisp and Undying for them. NiP, it's really hard to tell, but Queen of Pain, DK possibly. It's going to come down to how they feel it's going to go, though.
I would say DK, sure. Definitely a priority. I would agree with that.
I think for me the priority for Vici would rather be don't give them early teamfight potential. I think they're going to be much more relaxed about heroes that you have to execute. I feel like to me split pushing heroes are a lot harder to execute, such as Wisp Tiny. So I rather see them banning out a Chen for sure. Like Chen is one of the heroes that I would see them ban out. Yeah.
And the guys are actually ready. You can see NiP right now on the screen. We're going to head into the picks and bans. So guys, take it away.
Yeah, welcome guys. NiP versus Vici Gaming. Game number 1 of this best of 3. Joining me, Hani. I am Durka here in the JD Studios. First ban Lion by NiP. And that's something that we didn't really cover. Not something we were really expecting.
No, definitely. I mean, Lion is one of their, I think, most played heroes though overall. So I'm not very surprised by the pick, as he's, I think generally like he offers a very good support part in the support combination of Vici. So I'm not too surprised seeing that ban at all.
Yeah, well, Spiritbreaker taken out there by VG, so Undying, Queen of Pain, all these heroes still out there. Ninjas of Pajamas still have the option to go for a Chen if they so desire, but NiP, second ban. Hanskin, Limp, Silkid, Era, Jonas up against the FY, Super How, Ice, and Fenrir. And VG, we've definitely talked about how their drafting is quite open. You know, they're quite versatile with the picks that they go for. They're not set into guaranteed lanes. We haven't seen too often from them. The dual off lane, which has been popular in China, has been picked up by quite a few European teams as well. Southeast Asian as well. MVP Phoenix have had sort of Beastmaster Phoenix. We've seen Axe and Zeus and things like that, but VG seem quite set in their way. You mentioned FY in the jungle. That 4 role, he likes to be dynamic across the map while farming quite efficiently, but they don't regularly go for dual lanes. They're sort of protect How, protect Super.
Yeah, I don't think they aim for dual lanes. Usually not at all, right? But what often happens is that they have an early smoke rotation potentially to the off lane, to gank on the ice lane. And the first pick by NiP here with a gyrocopter is actually quite interesting in terms of openings. I guess it's one of those heroes that Hao is very familiar with, and they seem to prioritize the hero just because recently, I guess in terms of pickups in this patch, gyrocopter is one of the most common early startup picks.
Yeah, sure, Gyro first pick, but there's the Undying and Witch Doctor, so Ice Undying go a little bit aggressive, get up in the face, while Witch Doctor can sit with How, babysit him, stack, pull, get things going like that. But NiP Gyro, this is a hero that, you know, you can know. There's the Wisp as well. Gyro Wisp, something we've seen from Empire in the past, but how do you think NiP can actually pull things out here?
The interesting part for NiP is that NiP is still a team that runs the Gyro very different. They can still put him in pretty much all positions. We've seen in the past that NiP is they actually like to run Gyrocopter as a mid position. So right now it's not given where this hero is exactly going. Where the side of Vici Gaming, with having Undying plus Witch Doctor, this could still be contesting tri lane. You're not sure about that.
Yeah.
It could be an Undying off lane. I'm actually not too sure if I've seen this hero played by Ice, or if it's just played by the supports only. So I'm not entirely sure how this laning phase is going to work out. It still could. We were talking about the dual lane scenario, potentially that can happen, but right now it's still very open in terms of where something is going, right?
Yeah.
Like laning wise, nothing is given away.
I think I've seen Ice play Undying, but I might be thinking back to 6.82 or something like that. He's definitely sat on that hero, but you're right. While Tiny and Storm are the bans out by VG. Don't want NiP having their hands on the Wisp Tiny, but there's still Wisp Gyro there. They could even go with the Bristleback in the dual off lane. They could definitely switch things up themselves, but with the Queen of Pain picked up after the DK ban by NiP, that was a hero that we were talking about. I think the out of all the bans, the two more interesting ones really are the Broodmother second ban, up against VG. Okay, Ice loves that hero, but so early on. And then the Chen ban by NiP themselves.
I mean, they knew in the second banning phase, right? They knew the follow-up pick was not theirs.
Yeah.
So, given that, and their first two picks having the Wisp already, usually the Wisp player for NiP Hanskin, he also plays the Chen. So, in that sense, banning out the Chen is quite a good choice for them, and they know that VG Gaming also plays the Chen, so I think it's a common ban here, as strong as the hero is right now.
Well, there's a puck in response to that Queen of Pain, and there's VG with the Lifestealer, a hero that's seen quite a lot of play in China. How kind of brought it back. We've seen VGP and a lot of the tier 2 and tier 3 Chinese teams started picking it up when they tried to go for this pseudo death ball in 6.83. They were literally looking to end the game until 25 minutes, and now the new patch has come in. It's much more viable to go for this Lifestealer early play. They've got Queen of Pain to blink forward with the Infest onto heroes like Gyro and Wisp. They could catch out the Wisp and obliterate him before it can get too much done.
That's very true, but one thing that stands out to me here as well is how are they going to lane? Is it going to be an aggressive tri lane with the Lifestealer Undying as well as the Witch Doctor, or are they still trying to stay passive? I think NiP right now is thinking, where do we lane the Gyro? Because Gyro in the safe lane with the Wisp is not going to have a good time. You really don't. At the same time, they could do a contesting themselves. Gyro, Wisp, and Bane is quite good, potentially as aggressive tri lane. At the same time, do they want to contest? I really don't think so. Right now, Bane is one of the heroes as support that strengthens your tri lane, right? Going into a potential contest. It could be a Gyro Wisp as well in a mid lane, where Puck would choose to potentially sacrifice himself and going into that safe lane against a potential tri contest. It like right now in the draft, I would still say it's not really given where certain heroes go. The one thing you can say, I would assume, is that Super is going to be with the Queen of Pain in the mid lane.
I think that's the one you can look at, and you're right, it's quite ambiguous. This was something we saw in the previous patch where they tried to keep it as vague as they possibly can. There's a multitude of roles that heroes can fit into. But I'm looking at that Bane and seeing it as like almost a direct pick against the Lifestealer. And Feeble stays on through Rage. The ultimate goes through that magic community as well, so you know that no matter where Lifestealer is in item progression, in farm, in levels, you will always have a way to deal with them as soon as Bane hits level 6. So Ninjas of Pajamas right now, they've got lots of magical nuke damage, they've got a decent amount of sustain with the Wisp, some AoE with the Gyrocopter, but I like the Tide Band from VG. They need something to sort of tie it all together, bring people in. I don't know if you go for a Magnus here to try and defend your towers once he gets up a Blink Dagger or something like that. You don't have a melee core to get that cleave damage from the Magnus, but and power on Gyro is not too bad either.
No, I can see Max still being a pick here. At the same time, he kind of makes your lanes weaker, right? The one thing, like back in the days when you remember when Lifesteal was a common first to pick, like when he was picked very early in the draft, right? I think that the things that countered Lifesteal the most is either, like you mentioned, the BKB disable that Bane offers, or Enfeeble, right? Going through the BKB in his immunity in that sense, or having heroes like, for example, Racer. To me, like Racer could still be a shining hero potentially, given that he also counters a Lifestealer. Walking onto you, he could be something, but at the same time, like you mentioned, they don't have too much lockdown. How are they actually going to shut down these heroes, right?
Do NiP have a lone druid player?
A lone druids. I'm not sure if Jonathan Font plays lone, but at the same time, I think lone is not a good hero here, just because Lifesteal is such a good hero against lone. Feast works against the bear very well, so I would not assume a lone druid pick by them here. I think they either aim to get more 5-on-5, more control, or try to focus on another hero that counters the Lifestealer, such as Racer, for example.
Okay. Well, VG with a final pick here: Undying Witch Doctor, Queen of Pain, and Lifestealer. Final one, and still not sure whether it's going to be an offlane. We didn't even mention Queen of Pain could be heading there. We kind of sort of 90% sure that Super will be playing that with How on the Lifestealer. Witch Doctor, Undying, not quite sure where they're heading.
I mean, in terms of VG gaming here, I think they're aiming for an ice hero, just depending on whether it goes short lane or whether it goes off lane. I think the contesting is still very, very possible. I don't think they aim for dual lanes. I really don't think, because Ice usually likes to handle the lane on his own, right? And it's a Sand King, so it looks like Ice is gonna pick up the Undying here and going on the off lane potentially, where FY is just gonna be on his signature Sand King.
Sand King and Witch Doctor, and that's the greedy support that we were looking for, kinda. Sit in the jungle for a while, but early on, the first 3 levels, if he does go for the boots first, the level 1 Burrow Strike can offer you openings onto what are very squishy heroes. Bane, Puck, Wisp, low armor, low HP pools. They do have some form of escapes with Tether Away and Illusory Orb, but if you can get the damage down with Witch Doctor Cask, maybe getting a lucky bounce here and there, they could open up with a couple of kills.
One thing to mention is Sand King to me is actually a standout counter to a Puck. Just because as soon as you get your dagger into stun is one of the only tools against the Puck that can reach him in time. So so he can't just dodge. Pretty much, it's a target stun you can't dodge. The dagger initiation into the stun is usually something that locks down a Puck. It's very good for against the Puck, but also, like you mentioned, against the IO combination. You see the relocate coming in, Sand King and channels ulti. But all this depends pretty much on the dagger pickup. How fast can he get it? And right now, the lineup of NiP does not look aggressive at all. So for him, getting the chance to farm that Blink Dagger should be quite possible.
Yeah, something that Cap was mentioning early on when we were doing a little overview, contesting the enemy jungle. How does NiP get in there? And you're right, there isn't too much to actually get in there and try and stop this Sand King from farming, but there's Ursa for Era. And we're going to see the little fluffy bear enrage himself up, his sharp teeth going ham, but...
And that's, like I mentioned, it's one of those counters to an Ace, right?
Yeah.
Like they were looking for what kind of counter hero can we play against the Lifesteal, right? And that's one of those. He doesn't particularly offer too much lockdown, but given the change on his ultimate, he can really be very beefy. If he gets to activate his ultimate at the correct time, he can block immense of damage, such as a Sand King initiation. He jumps. If he gets the ultimate off in time, Sand King ultimate is just gonna scratch him.
Yeah. And then you combo him up with the Wisp. There's people going crazy on Reddit and YouTube saying, "Hey, look, with this 80% damage reduction on the Ursa's ultimate now,
What is it?
It's nuts." And then it stacks additively. So with the Wisp block, it actually adds up to him being invincible almost.
Is it like that?
Unless they've changed it recently, that it acts additively and not multiplicatively.
Oh wow! I did not know that.
We've seen him. There's a video out there. I'm sure you guys in Twitch chat will be posting, looking at it. But he basically walks into the fountain with a Wisp. This Ursa puts on his ulti and says, "Yep, well, what up? You can't touch me." So let's have a look at these lanes. Actually, it's Ice. We'll be playing that Undying, heading up to top lane with Super. Queen of Pain towards mid. Fenrir on the Witch Doctor with Hao playing the Lifestealer. And no surprise, FY Sand King heading into the jungle. And straight away, Era with Hansken. Wisp and Ursa going in. Do they have observers? Yes, they do. One place straight down as Hansken still going for that early bottle with 625 gold. The scout out for a level 1 Roshan there. FY making damn sure NiP don't get an early advantage. But the other heroes limp on the Gyrocopter actually with Sealkid, Bane, and up at top is Jonas playing the puck.
Right now, one thing to mention is it seems to me that NiP wanted to dodge that aggressive tri-lane potentially, but it looks like they're actually not even trying to aim for going aggressive at all, right? The other thing it could be that they just want to limit the farm of a Sand King, because Sand King and start is very inefficient, right? So contesting the Sand King might be the right choice.
Oh man, Fenrir. The cask will bounce back onto Hansken and now onto Era, so there won't be too much of a chase there, but it started off pretty decently as NiP now split up. Era on his own, but he'll manage to get away as Super gets the Shadow Strike down onto Hansken. Maybe with a stun from FY he'll find this. He goes for the bounty rune, he does manage to... No! He doesn't even buy his bottle!
He did now manage to pick the bounty rune up, I think. If you look at it, it was not...
Queen of Pain got it.
Yes, Queen of Pain picked it up.
Damn.
And he was waiting too long. It was very creative for him to stay there. Like, he saw, obviously, 3 heroes running at him. He wanted to pick up the bounty. Initially shot straight away. Think about it. He would have picked up the bounty, spammed the bottle, right? As your quick cast. I mean, your quick shot,
buy, yeah.
right? Yeah, you would buy that. I guess it's efficient. At the same time, you give up 500 gold, at least, right? Is that efficient? Probably not.
I mean, the thing is, you're trying to get your bottle as fast as you can, but on the flip side, you're giving Super what's going to be, you know, a pre-1 minute bottle pretty much here.
Yeah.
So you'll have that very early on. Limp, will he have someone come and support him? They don't have, they don't have a Witch Doctor or a Skywrath. The regular heroes we see come to the middle lane to help out. Maybe Sealkid has to.
Which is a huge problem, because right now, Gyrocopter definitely has to follow up with Regen here. He cannot go straight away for a bottle. No way. It's not possible. Just by Shadow Strike harassment that Super is going to give him, he will not be able to sustain properly on that lane. At the same time, Gyrocopter in the mid lane has a pretty good time against pretty much every hero. Like, there's hardly any hero shutting him down. And by that, if he just pushes out the lane, he potentially can max out Rocket, right? It's his choice on how he really wants to stay on the lane. It could be just him playing on the Rocket, or he could also go just the Rocket Barrage. Is also pretty good in terms of how he can farm, because you can spam the spell, right? And you would farm at the same pace, last hitting wise. Or you flat cannon and you push out the lane, you walk towards Rune, flat cannon, and come back. But I mean, I think the safest choice in terms of how you want to go on the mid lane would be potentially homing missile, because
like
it's just it's just very annoying for any mid laner to deal with that. Quap can't dodge it, he can blink away from it, he's always going to get hit, right?
Yeah, I can see that happening. Now, there was a lot of Theorycraft doing. I was quite some time ago, the Gyrocopter played mid. Phaetor, I think, was one of the first to try it with the homing missile. And we were saying, well, what does he go for as additional skill? The flat cannon, like you said, it can push out the wave. But then you also have the addition of being able to hit Super from long range and not put yourself into a situation where he's getting Scream, he's getting Shadow Strike onto you because of the long range of Flak. But so far, Limp is having a decent time at mid. 3 last hits up against the one of the Queen of Pain as Era, Sealkid, and Hansken all down on this bottom lane. 3 versus 2 for now, as FY has gone off to try and stack, pull, make the most out of the jungle. Sand King, he really needs this farm. He needs to get things going there, and the one lane we haven't really looked at is top. Ice, 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 Undying against Jonas Puck. Now, this lane, I don't think I've seen this matchup before. Puck should get a decent amount of last hits, but Undying could quite easily force him out with spam decay.
I mean, Undying, I think, it's interesting to me that you can see on him already having the Mango on him, right? The Enchanted Mango, giving him 1 regen a second, as well as the potential burst mana pool that he could need to finish a kill or whatnot. Generally, I think a Puck on a safe lane, in comparison to off lane, should win this matchup. I think so. He pressures more.
And you've got a long way to chase people.
But Ice is very experienced in these one-on-ones on side lanes. If he gets a one-on-one, usually he does very good. And I'm going to be very interested in how this lane is going to work out for him.
Oh man, poor Limp, down to 150 HP. Super piling on the pressure here. Queen of Pain going for 2 in Shadow Strike, and you know, without Flat Cannon, this Gyrocopter has to get in close to use Rocket Barrage. Super blinks forward with 2 more hits, he'll get the kill here. Limp having to try and regen up, but he'll still tick over. Looks like the tangos for now keep him alive. He's close. Oh man, down to 3. Does this regen him up enough? It's getting close. He does die. He does die in the end. That's a big kill for Super. Now Bottle and nearly brown boots.
And if he actually, you saw there was a chicken, right? If he actually microed the chicken towards him with a bottle, he could have lived there. If he would have taken it with bottle, or like if the team leader would have been there where he would have picked up the bottle, healed him, and he would have survived that kill. But it just shows how important that first play was for Queen of Pain.
Yeah.
Like he can just push him out of the lane, and right now there's no real answer. Who can rotate to kill the co-op? There's no one right now. Bane needs a level 6 to be able to do something. Gyro should be able to handle that lane on his own, but now given the fact that he does not have that first play, he has a first play against him, and now a kill as well, it's going to be very difficult to sustain on that lane.
And then what are Ninja's Pajamas getting on the other lanes? Down at bot, Era, okay, he's farming decently 8-1. Are they playing aggressively enough into how, though? They'd never know.
Oh wow.
Man. Okay, I thought that maybe he could force Puck out of lane. I'm going to watch mid for a second as Limp does go aggressive onto the Queen of Pain, but Ice finds a kill on the Puck at top.
And I actually saw what happened. It's the fact that he got surprised by how Ice skilled. He went 2 levels in Soul Rip, and level 2 Soul Rip is around 225 damage. And he had 10 creeps around him. Like the damage that Puck took there, with the fact that he was DK'd twice.
FY for a strike in. They're going to get another kill on Limp here. Super will take the last right click. Killing spree 3 minutes into the game. 1 kill a minute for this Queen of Pain so far. And she is balling out of control.
And right now the problem for NiP is they have no way to rotate these lanes. It's really hard for them to adjust anything. Puck could potentially go on bottom lane where Ursa's farm, is going to be probably staying around the same, where you limit the Puck though. Puck in a 1-on-1, he lost his 1-on-1 already, right? Bottom lane.
Nightmare onto Fenrir. Era's going in, but the Burst Strike will slow this advance down as FY might now be the target for Era. A couple more swipes should seal the deal. How? Body blocking now, trying to get in the way. Era stopped in his tracks, and the cask will stop the aggression from Ninjas in Pajamas as they now have to back themselves up. But a lot of damage done on this bot lane. They're running out of regen. FY given a salve, claritying up, and How getting a little bit ballsy there, walking into the big teddy bear.
I guess, looking at the lanes, sure they're losing 2 lanes, but they're still getting experience, right? As soon as Puck gets to 60, he should probably try to rotate and gank. Try to set up kills. Well, at least the bottom lane right now is going well for NiP. They're doing fine. Still given the fact that they gave away the first bet on Wisp, which kind of delayed the bottle, but overall they're still doing very good on that lane.
Yeah, and they are running an aggressive tri-lane though, so they don't have the option to go and stack their own jungle. Something we saw Empire do to a great extent, stacking jungle, Ancients, making sure that the Gyrocopter had a route back into the game. In this match, how do they do that? Do they stack Ancients for him on the way to rune spots? What's the plan here to get Limp back in? I mean, because now he's going to die again with a Sonic Wave. Super just blinks forward and says good night.
Did you say stop?
Limp needs to watch out a bit more. Like right now he's just like feeding away these kills, and it's going to snowball too hard where Queen of Pain next time he's not going to focus on the mid lane, but he's going to just rotate towards the bottom lane, and then that's the only winning lane for you right now. Or like it sort of does. Yeah, they are winning that lane. Where Queen of Pain with such a level advantage, it doesn't even matter if they're winning bottom lane. Limp now is level 5, where the Queen of Pain is level 7.
Taking a look at actually the hero levels there. The aggressive tri-lane from NiP, level 3s across the board with 7 and 6 on that Quap and Undying. Down and bot Fenrir. Stopped in his tracks by the Nightmare, but Era is having a little bit of damage applied to him by How. Maybe now with the tether up, Era will look to turn. How going in. Fury swipes to the face and he says, okay, I don't really want to commit here. And does back himself up. But this is just sort of NiP and VG dancing around each other, making sure that no one dies, and it just feels like VG are kind of baiting NiP into this, because mid lane again. Yeah, you're right. Burrow strike into Limp with a few more hits here. Again, he's going to drop. The homing missile's thrown out, but it's not going to do anything to Super.
It's looking very grimy for NiP. I mean, bottom lane is going well, but like I said, there's no potential for movement. Mid lane there's no chance of a kill until Bane gets level 6. Top lane, something can happen. I think Jonathan Fan really needs to make something out of that level 6. He has to probably rotate towards bottom lane, or someone rotates to him top. You need a support to rotate, because Undying is winning his lane quite heavily as well. He has mana was finished. He's working towards the mech now, as it seems. He has the headrest finished, and it looks like he's going for that mech on the Undying, and he's farming great.
Take a look at FY, 1800 gold, 6 minutes into this game. Not too far away from his Blink Dagger. Down at bottom, what are we seeing? Actually, Fenrir nightmared up, but Era looking for the Fury swipes. The cask is bouncing between them all, and in comes Super. scream out. Sealkid does drop. Sonic Wave, is it available? 5 seconds until we've got that back up as Puck does look to turn back around. How's dead, but Super now on the aggressive. Looking for Jonas to heal up. Hansken doing a great job. Super did have the Sonic Wave, but doesn't throw it down onto the Puck because he fogs him. Maybe now. Maybe he looks to re-engage. Maybe he cleans up. But he's not actually going to commit into that.
His blink was still on cooldown for like 2 seconds. Else, I think he could have just jumped there. Just because two heroes, Puck as well as Wisp, was very, very low there. And Ursa, was just to level 1 slow, it's not going to be enough to just chase him down and kill him. I don't think so. Despite him having Phase Boost, he would not get that kill on the Queen of Pain. Either way, like, what I was trying to mention earlier is the Puck rotation came after the initiation of VG. And I feel like it should be just the other way around. You want to get the upper hand. You want to get the kill. And Puck can definitely do that.
Oh man, how? Are you going for this? Limp does have Rocket Barrage and cooldown. He's going to need to throw something. He turns around and it's too late. He's already demolished by How. Hansken, I'm not sure what a lonely little Wisp can do against a mean old Lifestealer. He does TP in, but now going to have to back up. While Ice this entire time with his golden tombstone, farming up creep wave, jungle camp, and applying so much pressure onto this top tier 1 with the catapult wave.
Yeah, that top tower, I mean, Puck is now rotating back towards the top lane. And Ice said made straight away, he saw the TP coming towards bottom lane. As soon as he saw that, he pressured top lane. No one could touch that top lane, and he made great use of that. And the tower is almost down. It's at around 1/4 of HP left. And I believe, as you can see, that FY is even on top lane. He almost has his dagger.
Middle lane, NiP went for a little wraparound with Wisp, DD, and Sealkid. But How got his rage off in time, Super blinks out, and Olymp, even with the TPN, does he really not have boots? Oh, he's that far behind. 0-5 and 0 with Bottle and Wraithbound. 9 minutes into this game. Era really has to pull out all the stops here. Maybe look for the Roshan sooner rather than later.
I do agree with that. I think the way for NiP to accomplish anything here is actually they need to get that Roche. I really feel like they have to abuse the fact that they have an Ursa and
their die side
and their Enrage got a buff, right, in terms of Roche potential. I'm not entirely sure if the ultimate... oh my god.
Super, and that's what you were talking about. Snowball mid, get up to top lane. All it needed was a Sonic Wave. They clear up the tier 1. Down at bottom, what are we seeing? Dive onto tier 1 of the Radiant as Fenrir, with his heal, does manage to survive through this era. Maybe not so lucky, does get the stick charges, but Ice is here to clean up. Doesn't have a tombstone for another 30 seconds. He's also pretty low on mana. And Sealkid with a Nightmare back will slow the advance until Fenrir swaps it back onto himself. Though the Undying doesn't have too much to give except the massive wallop of a nuke from Soul Rip.
And I feel like they dove the Witch Doctor there with 3 heroes.
And didn't kill him.
And the casket of Witch Doctor was level 3. It literally just bounced between them. The way they initiate the fight is they need to know that they have to get the casket off them as soon as possible. You can't just dive a tower and expect to just take a kill and walk out safe. I feel like it's over, maybe too much chaos already that happened, where they're not really thinking straight anymore on what kind of movement they should be doing.
Well, now 4 heroes down to bot. Will they get this Witch Doctor to kill? Yep. They will indeed. I don't think it needed all 4, but they wanted to be damn sure.
They have to level 6 now on Ursa as well.
Oh, not too shabby.
Do they have a smoke to potentially rotate a Roche? It looks like they aim to push towards the bottom tower. One thing about Ursa, I guess, that kind of got worse is the fact that he's not as strong at as a pusher anymore. His old ultimate used to be quite good for pushing, but obviously the new one is, I think, in short-term perspective, in terms of you tank as well as you deal potentially more damage. I'm not entirely sure if it actually is more damage overall, but it's different, right? It's better for Roshan, it's worse for pushing, but I guess the tanking mechanism of Ursa got a bit better with that ultimate.
Yeah, Sealkid destroyed in the Radiant jungle as VG defending their tier 1 with everything they've got. And that's something that VG have always been very good at. They're very good at taking, but they never want to give away. So they're making sure that they're increasing their gold lead, which we'll take a look at now. 7,500 pretty much net worth lead over NiP. It is 11-2, but NiP, they've got a lot of work to do to bring themselves back in. Fenrir is playing the hard 5 here, so he's not going to have an Aghanims too soon. Era and Limp, their odds of progression, Era does nearly have the drums. His net worth isn't too shabby. 3.5k, 11 minutes in for an aggressive trial lane isn't too bad. It's just the difference there is actually dive behind tier 1, super godlike as FY now. One more hit, Hansken bottling through. The Sandstorm is just enough. to bring him down, and Super making sure that Seal Kid doesn't get a little too handsy with FY.
FY might actually go on.
Oh, blink forward, Burrow Strike, and Seal Kid! He's gone! The Tombstone's dropped an era now in a rough spot, Jonas. Do you Dream Coil? You do, but what else is left to give? Level 3 in the Orb and 3 in the Waning Rift, but you've got no way of getting in. You've got not enough damage, and then if you're in, there's no way to jump back out and escape, and it looks like Super says, okay, well, we know that. Taking down the Puck and now Era. Ursa chasing down Super. If we can get this kill, it's, a whole ton of gold, but Queen of Pain blinks out and looks like she's just peachy. As Era now turns back to FY. Limp with the Rocket Barrage doing a decent amount of damage. Fenrir, one-hit kill on the low HP Ursa, and this is an absolute rout. Ice, Ice, Ice outlasting everyone. The homing missile maybe does ding him and takes him out in the end, as Limp looking to man up against Fenrir. A couple of good kills there for NiP, but they lost so much in the exchange.
I mean, before these 2 kills happen, right, you're sitting at a 17-2 advantage. Not even looking at the items. Right now, Vici has pretty much all the core items in it. They have a Blink Dagger on Sand King. Howard has got that bottom tower against the Bane against the Puck as well. It's very... What do you do here? When you're in the shoes of NiP, I feel like the best way to approach this game is trying to get that Roche. Like, they kind of just have to try and sneak that Roche, and I really feel that way.
I get level 6 on Bane and kill Queen of Pain?
And that just got stopped.
Oh man, FY.
They were trying to smoke there. They tried to smoke into Roche, and at the same time, FY, he smells it. He knows that they're walking there.
They really do read the game so well. I think once they get level 6 on Bane, maybe there's an option to look for the kill on Super. Obviously NiP, they're hoping that he dies to the tower over here and gives them a massive boost of gold, because right now, what is he, godlike? He's going to give them so much. If they can get their money onto the Puck, I think is the key one here. Get that Blink Dagger at least 20 minutes into the game. Try and give them some form of mobility. Maybe they can have a route in, and actually speaking of Puck, caught between 4 heroes, but does orb over into the trees.
I think one thing to mention here about just like how the game developed, right, is you start off with a first blood on the Queen of Pain. In a 1-on-1, Queen of Pain has a pretty good time against the Gyro. But generally, I would say it's overall okay in a 1-on-1 scenario, right? But can you adjust if a mistake happens, right? And NiP, with how they drafted and how they laned, having a Bane bottom lane with a Wisp, both heroes can't help out either lane. You have a top lane with an Undying, a Bane can potentially rotate there, which he maybe should have, especially seeing how the lanes develop, but at the same time, they try to still keep one lane winning, right? The Trident for them was still doing fine, but other than that, like, you have no ganking potential. You can, you have a Gyrocopter middle, the only way you can set up a kill on a Queen of Pain is waiting that the rocket hits and then potentially come from behind just when the person is stunned. But at the same time, how reasonable is that? Like, is it a safe kill? Not really. You're most likely just gonna waste time. While Vici at the same time, they have even gang potential with just a lifestealer walking onto the mid lane, and we've seen this happen. Hao did not have much fun at all. He was level 5, and he just walked on the mid lane. He just slowed him down. They just got that easy kill, right? So getting kills for Vici here seems a lot easier than getting kills for NiP. If lanes fail, they can still rotate onto all lanes. Sand King can sub on all lanes, but yeah, like we mentioned, something happened in the early game and mid lane.
Oh yeah, Steel Kid just ceased to exist. Taken out by the Blink Stun Infest as well. I fully agree with the way that the draft of NiP went. Wisp and Gyro, they obviously had a plan for that. They picked up the Ursa as last, but the Bane and Puck, oh man, Ursa. FY with a mega kill streak now gets taken out in his own jungle, but the Bane pick there, let's say it had been, an AA or a Skyearth or something like that. I can't remember what the bans were, but if they had something that could play aggressively, that could still sit in a tri-lane with them and do some damage, but could then also sit mid and help out the Gyro. The Bane was picked specifically against the Lifestealer, right? It's good against the Queen of Pain as well, but they needed something to go through that magic immunity.
I mean, often, I just feel like what really divides the very, very good teams from the mediocre, or just not top teams, it's just the fact that with Vici, they have a backup plan. If lanes go wrong, if human failure appears, right? Like, given the fact that the Wisp dies and he does not get that rune, right? Think about it, could have been just the other way around. He gets a rune and potentially, he doesn't die, he gets a bottle, and the lane could be good, right? Then nothing snowballs. But I think the teams just need to think a bit further ahead. Like, what happens if exactly the opposite happens? We should still have a plan. Like, how do we come back from that scenario? And it looks like they're actually aiming to get that road right now.
It was such good timing as well. The courier will fly over. Radiant Courier spots them out, and VG not responding just yet. Did they not see that? Did they not get vision, or are they just not in a position to go? I guess How is top lane.
I think it was just out of vision range.
Okay.
I feel like courier range, it doesn't have much vision at all. And bottom lane.
Relocate into the back. Ice with a tombstone down. Kills Sealkid as he now tries to run himself away. Huntskin taken out by the Death Ward as the cast bouncing back and forth. Era and Limp both caught in a pretty rough spot as How is looking for the wraparound. Era slowed, turns to fight. Maybe now with a Sonic Wave, and How manages to keep himself healthy as 4 are dead. Era respawning into death. There's really no escape for him as VG 23-4, 17.5 minutes in. GG, well played is called as NiP tap out in game number 1.
You can just hope that NiP takes it easy. See this as an opening, as a warm-up match, and hopefully don't tilt coming up into the second game.
Yeah. Well, that's it, guys. Game 1 over. Pretty rough for NiP. Zoe, Cap, what did you think?
I mean, there isn't even that much to say about that game, but let's still try. Honey, you actually mentioned it during the cast, and I would like to break that down once more. What potential did NiP have? As you said, they couldn't really gank because they just didn't have the heroes to make that possible, also the way they laned. But what could they have done?
There's always the big question, right? How do you compensate for a failure in the laning stage, right? It can always happen to any team. This can happen, but the bigger question is, how do you adjust, right? And I think the adjustment that they could potentially have aimed for is Bane rotates towards top lane, and they just move the entire trialing over, and then Puck tries to get whatever he can. But at least you have a safe lane that can potentially adjust. The issue is running the gyrocopter middle, or why he's not run more often, is just because he does not offer a great disable. He really doesn't. He doesn't offer burst. He offers sustain in the lane, but at the same time, it's a hero that dies very quickly. And if it snowballs one way, it's not going to stop unless he gets help, right? And can any hero on the NiP side help? Not at all. A Queen of Pain can do whatever he wants. There will never be a kill unless super misplays or gets too cocky, right? He would go too aggressive and jumps into a gyrocopter. But do you expect that from a caliber player like him? Not at all.
Yeah. Gyros are farming mid. You really want to get some gold, and they weren't stacking Ancients, they weren't stacking jungle camps because they didn't have the opportunity. But what can you do when Super gets a first blood and a bounty rune, has a pre 30 second bottle, 40 seconds, whatever it was. He had a really fast bottle, then brown boots, and he just completely demolishing you.
Yeah, I think general playstyle is that Limp wants to be able to outplay his opponent in the middle lane, and he's going up against an opponent that he simply can't outplay. Also, the following up on the gyrocopter thing, I feel like gyrocopter is one of those mid cores that you're aiming like you said, there's no disables to provide there, there's no ganking pressure elsewhere, so you're pretty much aiming to win your lane up against the Queen of Pain via rocket spamming, and that's literally your only play. And if your first death happens and it starts spiraling against you, there's no recovery function whatsoever. I do agree with you though, the aggro tri-lane, right, rotating that out after it kind of failed essentially, and they needed to be able to, especially since the Puck versus Undying matchup wasn't particularly favorable to the Puck. It wasn't oh yeah, we may be losing this tri-lane versus tri-lane scenario, but at least we're getting this superior 1v1. It wasn't even in that case, so I really felt like they needed to rotate around, but they just didn't have the heroes to be able to rotate. I think the only thing they could have done was just defensive tri-lane and aim for the mid game. I do like the idea of the Ursa though. I mean, Ursa got big buffs, a surprise hero pickup that is something that Vici Gaming may not be used to dealing with. I thought it was their best shot, to be honest.
Yeah. It
but
was
they
an interesting
didn't get the
pickup.
Roche, so.
No.
But that's just how the lanes developed, right? And I think with the top lane, honestly, just looking at the matchup, I think Puck should have done better. He should not die. I tried to say during the level 3 phase, it was surprising how he skilled. That's the one thing. It was very cheeky because he just played on level 2 soul rip. Having 10 creeps around him, the damage that Puck takes, it's already half his HP at that momentum.
Yep.
But I think he had 2 decays at a time on him, where he just got surprised by the damage. He did not expect to drop from 50% HP there.
Mm-hmm.
So it was a very cheeky play by Ice there. Obviously, I think if you play that matchup again, it's not going to happen. I really doubt it, because I think Jonas and Fun is actually he's very unknown. Like he's not that most known player in the scene in terms of offlane, but to me he's one of the strongest offlaners right now in the European scene. So
Yeah.
I'm surprised by how the lane in itself went. Mid lane obviously disadvantage for Limp, but like we mentioned, I think just trying to think too much around the lanes, you know, like you try to go for winning lanes, right?
Yeah.
And then the Ursa lane won, right? Like you won that lane. Adrian got the farm, but he had no levels, right? So how good is that at the same time? Then you have two solo lanes that lose. I think top lane, in terms of NiP, should not lose. You should sort of go even. I think both can, you know, like have the up and downs on the lane. If you hit level 6 on Puck at the same time where Undying hit 6, Bane can just come on the lane and gank him. You have a kill on that lane if you wanted to. But yes, it was pretty much they were too stuck in how the lanes were set up. They could not rotate. On paper, they see the lanes, but what happens when something goes wrong? And I guess that kind of was the downside to NiP's draft here.
Yeah, and they would have had plenty of options when it came to not just like rotating to gank the Puck's lane, but also Puck rotating out and helping out, you know, that middle lane, or helping out and like securing the bottom lane, you know, even earlier, and being able to get a faster tower that secures Roshan. Like there's so many things that could have built up there, but just the failure in the laning phase is really what kept NiP from being able to progress to any plan in the mid game.
Well, we will be discussing game 2, which is coming up in just a bit. But before that, we're going to head into a quick commercial break, and we will find out if NiP will manage to get the second game of this series on their scoreboard. So for that, stay tuned, and we should be right back.